There have been a lot of interesting rumors lately about big retailers like Walmart, Target, Best Buy potentially getting rid of physical games completely from their shelves and no longer selling them. Now, the Best Buy rumor turned out to be partially true. They actually confirmed that they are planning on discontinuing sales for movies, but they're not planning on discontinuing physical games at this time. But then after that, there were more rumors about Walmart doing it, about not selling physical games anymore. So who knows what's going to happen. It feels like if it's not going to happen now, it's definitely something that feels inevitable, right? Physical games being completely phased out. So obviously physical demand is at such a low point where a lot of these stores don't feel like it is worthwhile to even sell physical media at all. You know, like that's been going on when it comes to DVDs, Blu-rays, CDs. I remember Walmart used to have they used to have like 5 different aisles just for CDs, and now they don't really have any anymore. And yeah, of course that was always going to trickle down to video games. Physical media has been useless for the past decade plus at the very least, because like, you know, when you had the rise of digital media, but even before that, like I would say, I remember when I had a PS3 back in like 2008, 2009, I would put I would put a disc into the tray, and I remember my first time ever playing a game on the PS3, I was stunned, because with the PS2, I would just pop the disc in and it would play instantly. With the PS3, I had to install the game. Like, I would put it in, even though it was a physical disc, I would have to install it and just sit there for, like, sometimes an hour or longer just waiting for the game to install. And I'm just like, what the hell? I think that really was the moment where I'm like, what's the point of having a disc at all if it's going to be doing this bullshit? This is before digital media was really, like, much of a thing. Like, you still had to buy the games physically, but you also had to install the games. And with the 360, it was even worse because you had all these games on like 5 different discs. Sometimes, remember Wolfenstein in 2014, it had 5 discs. And yeah, it was getting to the point where, you know, the whole idea of physical copies of games started to become meaningless. Definitely more so when every single game came out on digital day one. You know, that started to happen around like 2011, 2012. So that really negated the need for a physical copy of any game when you could just, you know, from the comfort of your own home, get the game and not have to stand on a long line at GameStop on launch day or just have to go to GameStop at all. Oh man, what a terrible experience shopping there. Last time I was there was like 5 years ago. I went to the local GameStop in my area. I just wanted to, like, I had some money. I just wanted to buy a whole bunch of games, and I didn't go to GameStop for a long time before that. So I'm like, yeah, I'm going to go to GameStop for old time's sake. Why not? And I go there, and I get my games, and they're just trying to sell me, like, 10 different things. Oh, do you want to buy this game? Do you want to buy that game? Do you want to get the Pro membership? Do you want this, that? Like, they're just always trying to sell you. Like, when you work at GameStop as a cashier, you're a salesperson first and a cashier second. Like, that's really how it works over there. And it just became so obnoxious. Also, the trade-in values for the games are just laughably ridiculous. I remember trading in, like, 20 games and only getting, like, $40 out of that deal. And I was just like, yeah, no, I'm not going to do that. Like, there were a whole bunch of games where I'm like, they literally offered me no money. I remember specifically Medal of Honor 2010, if you guys remember that game. I wanted to trade that game into GameStop, and they literally said, we won't even give you a penny for this. And I'm like, I didn't think the game was that bad. Like, really? Come on. For like 10 years, it's felt inevitable that GameStop's going to go out of business. I feel like the whole stock craze that happened a couple years ago was like really the thing that's keeping them going. And, you know, they got all that capital coming in that they otherwise definitely wouldn't have. I know the CEO of GameStop, like a month ago, wrote a letter or something, or an email to the top, you know, people in the corporate side of GameStop saying, like, yeah, I don't know, it's not looking good. Like, we really need to step our game up and we need to figure something out because it looks like we're not going to be in business for much longer. And I'm like, well, I feel like that's been going on for, like, at least since 2013, 2014. So, hey, to their credit, they're still alive. Barely, but they're still alive. I know COVID was a huge hit for them. Remember when they were trying to lobby the government to stay open and calling themselves an essential business? Obviously, that didn't work. They were laughing at them. But, yeah, I mean, the COVID shutdowns really fucked over a lot of people. GameStop had to close down so many stores because how do they make any money without the stores? They can't. So, yeah, GameStop, it feels like at some point they're probably going out of business. Walmart, like, they're one of the main companies, the main stores that still offers physical games. They're probably going to still sell them for a little while longer, but I see things like the leak. Remember the big Microsoft leaks about a month ago? And one of them was the new Xbox Series X redesign. Not going to have any physical tray at all. And then Sony with the PS5 Slim is doing some weird stuff with like having a detachable disk tray, but you can tell Sony definitely wants to get away from physical media since they're charging a lot less money for the disc-free console, the digital-only edition of the PS5. And obviously, a lot of that has to do with less consumer demand for physical discs because in the age of the internet, you can just, digitally download the games instead of having to physically go out to the store. And you also don't have to worry about scratching your disc. You know how many discs I've scratched over the years and had to rebuy the same game over and over again? And, losing discs, not knowing what you did with them. And a lot of that has to do with carelessness and whatever. You can, blame the person for that. But still, it's just a lot more convenient and a lot easier. And a lot of the times, it's just less of a headache to just get the game digitally instead of having a physical copy of it. Over the years, demand for physical games, game sales, physical game sales, keep getting lower and lower and lower and lower to the point where it's it makes sense to not really offer a physical copy of a game if you have to pay all this money for manufacturing and all that when you're not really going to make that much money physical sales anymore. So I don't really blame these companies that are going digital only because there are a lot of them that are starting to head in that direction as well. Yeah, I'd say by the next generation, physical media is going to be completely phased out. Sony and Microsoft might offer a really expensive version of the next gen PlayStation and Xbox for people who have a bunch of discs, for backwards compatibility. Because I'm sure that the PS6 will be able to play PS4 games and the Xbox, whatever they're going to call it, will be compatible with Series X and Xbox One, along with 360 and original Xbox. So maybe they'll offer it because that is kind of fucked. If you have a whole library of physical games and they sell digital only consoles, how are you going to access most of your game library, right? So that's a potential concern right there, but it's hard for me to justify the continued existence of physical media when I'm someone that's a PC only gamer at this point and I don't play any console games anymore. I don't buy games on consoles, so therefore I obviously don't buy physical games because the physical market on PC has been dead for at least a decade, probably 15 years because of Steam and everything's digital. From a game preservation perspective, the loss of physical media is concerning because there are some games that get delisted, especially sports titles, but there are also other games too that just are removed from the store and the only way you can get it is from a physical copy or on PC through a Steam key, whatever keys are left that aren't redeemed. There's very few left of that. I remember I had to pay $60 on Aniba, which is a Steam key website, to get a copy of Game of Thrones because that game's been delisted for so many years now. But at the same time, on PS4 and Xbox One, it's even more expensive for a physical copy of that game. So it's pretty much the same thing if you think about it. Either way, you're eventually going to run out of copies and it's going to get more and more and more expensive when, we're talking about delisted games and it's not going to really be accessible to the average person anyway. You have to pay $80, $90, $100 for one video game. Why do you think everyone emulates these old retro consoles instead of actually buying the physical hardware and the physical media because it's just way too expensive to buy all the games physically anymore? See, I get there are people who still have bad internet connections and having that disc makes the game more accessible and there are issues when it comes to game preservation that physical media helps remedy a bit. But I think once we got to the point where physical games started to not come with the full game in the disc, you had to download parts of it off the internet. Remember the Spyro Reignited trilogy? Once you had games like that starting to pop up, it's these are basically glorified paperweights. That's what you're paying. There's no reason to even have a physical copy of any game anymore, really. And a lot of that you can boil down to corporate greed because Sony and Microsoft basically being able to kill physical media, they make a lot more profit off of their digital storefronts, right? And they'll no longer have to be worried about the used game market because that's, remember Sony had a war on used games back in the PS3 era. As someone that mostly plays online games, it doesn't really affect me either way because an online game's going to get shut down no matter what, whether it's physical or not, right? And a physical copy, once the game's updated, you need updates in order to continue playing these online games, so having a physical copy means nothing. Remember MAG on the PS3? That game had a physical copy, but once the servers got shut down, the game became literally unplayable, no matter what. So, any way you break it down, it's just, physical it's felt obsolete for a very long time, and it's just, I guess, about time that it becomes completely phased out. At the end of the day, these companies are going to do whatever they want to do. If they want DRM in their games, if they want live service, if they want raise game prices from $60 to $70, like that, Nintendo has a bigger physical market than Sony and Microsoft do, yet games are so much more expensive on the Switch on average than they are on the PlayStation and Xbox. So I think that also speaks volumes, like just how the physical market doesn't really do anything anymore. It doesn't have any utility anymore for the consumer, and yeah, it's just time to move past it and move on from it.